This video is just to kind of explain the setup of our notebooks that we use at John Glenn Middle School in our 6th grade math. So the first page of every notebook, or I would say the first page of every new unit, we always have our table of contents. So at the top, we always have what our new unit is. And so our first unit that's going to be happening through the year is going to be our number theory unit, which is why you see that there. We have our table of contents, and then we just utilize those lines. We have our page number and our topic. Now, some teachers will have these pages removed, some teachers keep them in. It doesn't really matter what happens as long as the table of contents is easily accessible and that students can use this to reference whatever information that they need. Now, the way that the notebooks are set up is on a 2-page piece. So we have our left page and we have our right page. And it kind of works in the way with how the brain works. You have your left side of your brain and then the right side of your brain. Let me refocus this for you. Now notice how I have a number 1 up here in the corner. It kind of just turned out that the way we set up our notebooks, that the left-hand page is always going to be the odd number, and then the right-hand page will always be the even number. And we like to number our pages in our notebooks just so that we have that reference. Now you see this acronym here, MMS. That just stands for My Math Space. Just kind of a cute little way to say it. You can be renamed as workspace or practice space as well. It doesn't really matter. But students will use this page here specifically to work on practice problems, to just kind of put their thinking on paper. There really is no expectation as to what this page looks like for students because it's the left side of your brain is more on the creative side of things. And so if students want to write horizontally, diagonally, vertically, if they want to draw a diagram to start showing their thinking, they can do that. It doesn't really matter. What this page is not for is to just doodle pictures because a student is bored, but just to write down their thinking and kind of work out some problems in their head. Or I suppose put the work from their head onto the page. Now, the right page, more like the right side of your brain, is where the logic comes into play. So I always think of that the right side is right, meaning correct. So notice again, so on the page where the actual notes are, that's the even page number. We have our topic at the top, and you've noticed that you'll notice that whenever I do my instructional videos, I always have the topic written here at the top. There's always a date. We always want to make sure we know what date our notes are from. That way we can reference it. And then there's what we have is the essential question. The essential question basically is the focus of our lesson for today. And so it's not always just as vague as a learning target may be. It might be a little bit more specific to kind of guide the student's thinking. There is this place for summary, and then the notes down here, the structure is just a little bit different. So the way that this is set up down here is in what we call a Cornell style. And this was very specific to Avid, and we've kind of taken it and made it more of as a focused note, just interactive note kind of taking way. Typically, what you'll see is on this side is where you'll see questions, and this side is you'll see notes, information, diagrams, and then examples. The reason behind that is this is a study tool. Now, in a true format, what students would do is they would fill in all of this piece first, and then they would go back and they would write questions specific to the information that's written over here. Knowing that 6th graders aren't quite I'm waiting for that to refocus for you. Good. Knowing that 6th graders aren't quite there yet with being able to write their own questions, it's the developmental, the abstract thinking, and all that there. We scaffold and we provide the questions for them. Now, by the time that they get later into 6th grade and then into 7th and 8th, then the expectation is going to be a little bit different. And then they'll start having to take the notes first and then go back and then write the questions. But for the sake of 6th grade, we will always provide the questions for the time being. Now here's how the structure of this works. Notice I have the line here The ultimate goal of this is that I can fold this over so I cover up all the information and all I have there are my questions. And what I can do is I can look at those questions, I can read them, and I can quiz myself with studying. So for example, I have a question, and then I can quiz myself, and if I don't remember, if I want to check my accuracy, I can open up and I have the information directly across from it. And so the way that this is supposed to line up is you have your question, and then directly across is going to be your notes. You have your question, and directly across is going to be your notes. And that's the ultimate goal when it comes to the organization of these. Now, what will start to happen after we take notes is we'll come back and we'll actually revisit those notes sometimes, and we'll do what we call some note layering. And so what we would do is we would end up going back, circling information, highlighting pieces of information that we thought were important, maybe writing in a different annotation for ourselves, kind of like how sometimes you see people do where they point an arrow and then they write a little note to themselves, or maybe off to the side they'll write something and circle it. And that's just to kind of reiterate that information and also even just highlight pieces so students can think about what was the relevant information from that day. Almost at the end of every single lesson, students are required to do a summary. And the summary, notice I have it back up here at the top. Some teachers will have it down towards the bottom of the page. It doesn't really matter where it goes. The idea of the summary, though, is that you are answering the essential question for the day. And so it's not just, I learned how to use the order of operations. It's answering specifically whatever the question is asking for, which is why when I said the essential question can sometimes be very specific, it's because we really want students to hone in on a certain strategy, or we want students to focus in on something specific. So just to kind of give you a little bit of elaboration, let me turn back to some notes that I did here. So, and you'll see these in my least common multiple notes, but just kind of elaborate. So I didn't put the page number because I didn't number my pages, but for example, maybe this would be 6. And so I have my topic at the top, I have a date, I have my essential question, I have a space for my summary, and then I have all of my notes. And what you can notice here is that I can cover it up, and then I have my questions here, I can quiz myself, and then I can open up and take a look, and there's my information. And then notice here how my essential question is very specific on what's the difference between two things. So then as I write my summary, I'm focusing my ideas on what the essential question is. So there's just a general synopsis of how our notebooks are set up for students and how to utilize them as a study tool.